Good evening, everyone. Those who are watching the live session. So today we will be discussing the questions from the income tax area from Study Hub. So our focus is on both the MCQs, that is section A questions, and section C questions related to income tax. Good evening, everyone. Those who are watching the live session. Okay. So today we will be discussing the questions from the income tax area from Study Hub. So our focus is on both the MCQs, that is section A questions, and section C questions related to income tax. Good evening, everyone. Those who are watching live session. Okay, so in your study hub, there is a section known as practice questions. So if you take your study hub, be very careful. You have to select Taxation UK. Today we're discussing the Okay, guys, so there was a slight glitch. Okay, so when you're taking your study hub, you have to be very careful. This is Taxation UK for examinations from June 2024 to March 2025. So you have to be extra careful in that because two materials are available for you. There is one from June 2023 to March 2024. That is a previous version with the previous syllabus area. We have to get the updated one. So this is from June 2024 to March 2025. So I'm going to start off with questions from chapter 2. So on the side, on your left-hand side, there is practice questions, and I'm starting off with objective test questions from chapter 2. First one is, Jasper is in full-time employment as a waiter in a restaurant. So Jasper is an employee in a restaurant. So he is earning employment income. Which two of the following items of Jasper's income are exempt for income tax purpose? So they're asking you, out of the following incomes given to you, which of the following can be treated as an exempt income? Now, I've already given the list of exempt income yesterday. So make sure you watch yesterday's video if you have missed it. So the list of exempt incomes normally include income from ISA, income from savings certificates, also premium bond wins and betting wins, and certain situations child benefit is also exempt. Now, we have to go through the options. So I'll start off with the interest received on a loan Jasper made to a friend. So when Jasper is giving a loan to someone and collecting interest on that, that is savings income, and that will be considered as a taxable income. C, gratuities received from restaurant customers. Please keep in mind, gratuities are part of your employment income. That is a non-savings income, so that is taxable. Dividends received from ISA, individual savings account. I hope you remember the fact that the maximum amount you can invest per tax year for 23-24 tax year, it is 20,000. You can invest as cash or shares or a combination of both. If you have invested as shares into ISA, you will receive dividend. And any income received from individual savings account is an exempt income. So this is exempt. And they're asking for one more. So out of the remaining options, there is only A left. So let's read A. Interest received on a repayment of income tax. So that means you have paid excess income tax and you have received interest on that from the HMRC, from the tax authority. Please keep in mind that is an exempt income. So answer is both A and D. Moving on to the next question. If you have any doubts, please feel free to ask. So next one. Now, this is a very straightforward question, and you just have to by heart the fact that the highest effective marginal rate of income tax, if you have a reduced personal allowance, is 60%. So this is something that you can by heart as such. Because if your net income is above 1 lakh, below 125, 140, you will have a reduced personal allowance. And in that situation, your highest effective marginal rate of income tax is 60%. So I'm just going to select questions which are quite tricky one. So next one is question number 4. What is the maximum amount of pension contribution that Alfonso can make for the tax year 23-24 without incurring an annual allowance tax charge? So when do you get an annual allowance tax charge? Every year, there is an annual allowance limit, the maximum amount you can contribute to the total pension schemes without incurring any additional tax. So that limit is your annual allowance. And normally, if your adjusted income is less than or equal to 240,000, that annual allowance remains 40,000. And if it is above 240,000, then you will have a reduced or a tapered annual allowance. And if it is above 3,12,000, then your annual allowance becomes 4,000. So the idea is up to this limit of contribution, up to the limit of annual allowance contribution is tax-free. Any contribution that you make above that will be liable for tax, income tax. So Alfonso, who is self-employed, opened a personal pension scheme for the first time in the tax year 21-22. So the first time he has opened a personal pension scheme. That means he was not previously a member of any scheme. This was the first time he is joining into a personal pension scheme. And he made a contribution of 56,000. So that was the first tax year in which he joined a registered pension scheme and he made a contribution of 56,000. Now, Nothing is mentioned in the question, so we have to understand the fact that he has contributed more than his annual allowance. So if nothing is mentioned in the question, let's assume that his adjusted income was less than 240,000. So his annual allowance was just 40,000. He contributed 56,000. So in that year, in 21-22, he had an annual allowance charge of an extra 16,000. Okay, that is done. Then he has never been a member of any other pension scheme, just personal pension schemes after that. After 21-22, he has not registered for any other pension scheme other than personal pension. He made a further contribution of 17,000 in the tax year 22-23. So I am just going to write the data in a tabular format here. So if you see, in 21-22, he made his first contribution. The contribution was 56,000 and his annual allowance was actually 40,000 in that year. Okay, how did I decide it was 40,000? Because the adjusted income, if nothing is mentioned, was less than 240,000. So his annual allowance is 40,000. And he does not have any carry forward annual allowance because this was the first year he registered into the scheme. Then in 22-23, he made a contribution of 17,000. And his annual allowance, again, nothing is mentioned, his annual allowance was 40,000. That means there was an unused annual allowance here. So his unused annual allowance is equal to 40,000 minus 17,000, which is 23,000. This can be carried forward to 23-24. So in 23-24 tax year, the question says he has an adjusted, he has a trading profit of 80,000. So it is very obvious that his annual allowance for that year will also be 40,000 because 80,000 trade income, എങ്ങനൊക്കെ നോക്കിയാലും അതിന്റെ adjusted income 240 താഴെയായിരിക്കും. Okay. Whichever way you do the calculation, the adjusted income will be less than 240,000 itself. So you are eligible for an annual allowance of 40,000 in the current year. You have not made any contribution here. So you want to see what is the maximum amount of contribution that you can make without incurring additional charge. So keep in mind, what is the maximum contribution that you can make? So what is the maximum contribution you can make without incurring charge? So that includes the current year 40,000 plus you can carry forward your unused annual allowance for 3 years since if you are a member of a registered scheme. So in the previous year, there was an unused annual allowance of 23,000. That means you can make a total of 63,000 contribution tax free. So that is the maximum contribution that you can make without incurring additional annual allowance charge. So the question was, what is the maximum amount of pension contribution that Alfonso can make for the tax year 23-24 without incurring an annual allowance tax charge? And the answer is 63. So the next one is, Aubrey has made pension contribution of 33,000 a year for the last 5 years. So he has made this contribution 33,000 for the past 5 years. He plans to make pension contribution of 1,13,000 for the tax year 23-24. His annual income is 140,000 as well. So what is the amount of excess contribution subject to annual allowance tax charge in the tax year 23-24? So they're asking you, you have contributed more than your limit. They have very clearly said that. They're asking you what was the excess contribution which is subject to income tax. So when you do the computation for this, let's just first decide what was our annual allowance charge for 23-24. So he plans to make a pension contribution of 1,13,000 for the tax year 23-24. And his annual income is 140,000 as well. So you can carry forward your unused annual allowance from the previous 3 tax years. So you can carry forward from 2021, 21-22, 22-23. Okay, in this period, it was very evident that your annual allowance was worth 40,000 because your income was less than 240,000. Your adjusted income was less than 240,000. And therefore, the contribution that you have made during this period is 33,000. So the unused amount is equal to 7,000. Okay. You can carry forward this to 23-24 tax year. So when you take it to 23-24 tax year, you can add 7,000 plus 7,000 into 3 years, plus you can take the current year's limit as well. So let's see what is the current year limit. So his annual income is 140,000. So in the current year, he is eligible for a 40,000 as well. So that means the total limit that he can contribute is 21,000 plus 40,000, which is equal to 61,000. He has made a contribution. He made a contribution of 113,000, out of which his limit was just 61,000. So the excess contribution is equal to, which is liable for tax. So out of the 113,000 contribution, 61,000 falls within the limit of annual allowance. So the remaining is 52,000, and you have to pay tax on this 52,000 as well. Now, there is a important aspect. Your 40,000 annual allowance is based on a figure known as adjusted income. So I hope you remember the computation of adjusted income, which is your total net income. And to this, you are going to add employee contribution to OPC. It was not told in the question that it was an OPC. So we have to assume that it was not an OPC, and also add employer contribution to OPC and PPC. So in this question, your net income was around 140,000, but there was no employee contribution to OPC. It was not clearly said in the question that it was an OPC contribution. So I'll indicate 0 here. There was no employer contribution as well. So your adjusted income remains the same. So your adjusted income is 140,000. So if your adjusted income is less than or equal to 240,000, in that situation, your annual allowance will be a fixed figure of 40,000. Along with that 40,000, you can carry forward the previous 3 years unused annual allowance as well. So I hope that was clear. So the answer is 52,000. So we are moving to the next question. So we are done with chapter 2. Let's proceed to the next chapter, which is chapter 3. And in chapter 3, we have a computation. What is Luke's property income for the tax year 23-24? Okay, so Luke is an individual. Ideally, his default method of calculating property income is cash basis. So Luke acquired a residential property that he first let out, unfurnished on 1st August 2023 for an annual rental of 12,000 payable quarterly in advance. So he started letting out the property from 1st August 2023 for an annual rent of 12,000 which was payable quarterly in advance. So from August, you need to count the number of quarters that falls within our tax year 23-24. So from August, you have to count. August, and the rent is paid in advance. Rent is paid in advance. Rent advance ആയിട്ടാണ് പേയ്മെന്റ് നടത്തുന്നത്. അപ്പോൾ അങ്ങനെയാണെന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ നമ്മൾ എത്ര rent payment 23-24 tax year പോകുന്നുണ്ട് എന്ന് നോക്കണം. We have to check how many rental payments are going in 23-24 tax year. So the answer to that is, so it is paid in advance, right? So in August, there will be one quarterly payment, and then September, October, August, September, October is one quarter. In 1st November, there will be another payment, November, December, January, and then on 1st February, there will be another payment as well. These 3 payments fall within our tax year, 23-24 tax year. So there are 3 quarters here. The annual rent is 12,000, of which you need to find out the rent for 3 quarters. So annual rent of 12,000 payable quarterly in advance. So that is the rent amount. Building insurance expense paid during this period. It is an allowable deduction. So that is 650. Minor repairs to doors and windows. That is also an allowable deduction. So that is 1,150. Improvement to the property is a capital expenditure. You cannot deduct it. You have to indicate 0. Advertising for the tenant is an allowable deduction, so you can deduct it. And council tax is also an allowable deduction, so that is 1,600 deductible. So that means you take your property income, so your rent received, and keep in mind you're an individual. By default, you're using the cash basis here. So that is equal to 12,000 into 3 divided by 4. From this, you have to deduct 1 by 1 expenses. So starting off with building insurance. Building insurance is deductible, which is 650. You can also deduct minor repairs. So repairs is also deductible. So you can deduct the amount of repairs, which is 1,150. Then improvements are non-deductible. Capital nature expenditures are non-deductible, indicate 0. Then advertisement is deductible. So that amount is equal to 220. And then you have council tax is also deductible. So council tax amount is 1,600. Have to do the calculation for 3 divided by 4. So out of the 4 quarters, you got the rent of 3 quarters during our tax year. So your relevant property income is equal to 5,380. So the answer is 5,380. So just keep in mind, improvement is non-deductible, indicates 0. Rest of the expenses are deductible. And when you take the rent received, 3 quarterly rents were received. Next one. This was related to FHL. I hope you know the rules for treating a property as an FHL property. So the conditions have to be met in order to treat it as an FHL property. Those conditions are specified in your study hub, chapter 3. Okay, so Gloria lets out 2 furnished properties to holiday makers. Both properties are available for letting for over 210 days each year. So there is a limit that the property has to be available for letting of a minimum of 210 days per tax year. So it is available. Then next condition is it should be let out for a minimum of 105 days during a tax year, and there should not be long-term occupation. Long-term occupation is a continuous occupation of more than 31 days. Property A was actually let out for a total of 140 days. That is okay. All lettings were on a weekly basis, except one letting was from July to 14th August, which is more than 31 days. So this falls under long occupation. Therefore, you cannot classify that property as an FHL. So no, Property B was actually let for 110 days on a weekly basis and it was unoccupied for the rest of the time. So it was available for letting for a minimum of 210 days, of which it was actually let out for 110 days, and there was no long occupation. So that is eligible, that can be considered as an FHL property. So that is true. Yesterday I discussed about, today also we discussed about what is the maximum investment you can make to ISA. So you can make a total investment of 20,000 per tax year as either cash, shares, or a combination of both. Paul invested 6,000 in shares or stock and in ISA. So they are asking you how much Paul can invest in the form of cash. So the total limit is 20,000. Out of the total limit, he has invested, he has invested as shares 6,000. That brings us to the question, the remaining 14,000 can be invested as cash into ISA. Premium, that is a pretty straightforward calculation. Just make sure that you can time apportion you do not time apportion your premium taxable amount. Since 6th April 2023, Nicholas has let out an unfurnished freehold office building. On that date, the tenant paid Nicholas a premium of 82,000 for the grant of a 15-year lease. So if it is a short lease and you received any premium on that, you have to calculate the taxable amount. So the taxable amount is calculated as premium received. So premium received is equal to 82,000. Premium received 82,000 minus 82,000 into 2% into n minus 1, which is 15 years minus 1. So this is your taxable figure. So that is equal to 82,000 minus 82,000 into 2% into 15 minus 1, which is equal to 15 and 40. So that is your taxable amount. Then, Ragman's only source of taxable income is his property business consisting of unfurnished residential letting. So it is a residential property that is let out. The profit for the tax year is 99,500. So the property income that he has made is 99,500 during that period. This does not include an interest expense of 24,000. So remember, you purchased a residential property for letting out using a loan, and you ought to pay interest on that loan. Any interest expense that you pay is non-deductible in your property income computation if it is a residential property. When you calculate your income tax liability, 20% of that interest expense can be deducted. അതായത് നിങ്ങളുടെ മെയിൻ ഫോർമാറ്റ്, നിങ്ങൾ പ്രോപ്പർട്ടി ഇൻകം കമ്പ്യൂട്ടേഷൻ നടത്തുന്ന ഫോർമാറ്റിൽ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ആ 24,000 ഇൻട്രസ്റ്റ് എക്സ്പെൻസ് മൈനസ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റത്തില്ല. പക്ഷെ നിങ്ങൾ ഇൻകം ടാക്സ് ലയബിലിറ്റി കണ്ടുപിടിച്ച് കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ട് അതിൽ നിന്ന് എന്ത് ചെയ്യുക, ഒരു 20% ഓഫ് ദാറ്റ് ഇൻട്രസ്റ്റ് ഡിഡക്റ്റ് ചെയ്യുക. ഇത് ഏത് കേസിലാണ്? നിങ്ങൾ വാടകയ്ക്ക് കൊടുക്കാൻ വേണ്ടി റെസിഡൻഷ്യൽ പ്രോപ്പർട്ടി വാങ്ങാൻ ലോൺ എടുത്തിട്ട് ഇൻട്രസ്റ്റ് അടയ്ക്കുന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ. അപ്പൊ ഇവിടെ the question is to calculate income tax payable. So first, in order to calculate income tax, we have to calculate the taxable income. So first thing first, we are going to do the computation of taxable income. So starting off with, there is only property profit. So the property profit, which is a non-savings income. Okay, this is a non-savings income. And this was 99,500. Now keep in mind, don't forget to deduct your personal allowance here. So your personal allowance is equal to 12,570. That brings you to your remaining taxable income. So your taxable income is equal to the sum of these. It is 86,930. Now you need to do the computation of income tax liability. It is an MCQ, so you can refrain from any complicated step. So starting off with, this is non-savings income, and you have to do the basic calculation first, which is 37,700 into 20%. Then you have to do the higher calculation, which is equal to 86,930 minus 37,700 into 40%. And from this, you have to calculate an interest cost relief എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞിട്ട് 24,000 interest cost ന്റെ 20% deduct ചെയ്യണം. So that is equal to 37,700 into 20%. Then that is equal to 86,930 minus 37,700 into 40%. And from this, you need to deduct 24,000 into 20%. So that brings you to your remaining income tax liability. So that answer is correct. So we are moving to the next chapter, which is chapter 4, employment income. So in this chapter, there is a question for deciding the bonus that is accessible for 23-24 tax year. Now keep in mind, if you are a director of the business, Natalia is a director of Northern Limited, which has an accounting reference date of 31st March 2024. So if you are a director in a company or in a business, to decide on the bonus assessment, so whether you will include that bonus in your first, in which tax year, you have to take, first decide 5 dates. So the 5 dates is equal to the payment date, the entitlement date, the amount was credited in the credit on records, and then P&L end date and the determination date. So determination date, or it can be said as the vote date. Now, in order to include the vote date, if you want to take the P&L date, you can only use 4 dates for comparison. So if you want to take the P&L end date, the determination should happen before. Determination should happen before SOPL end date. And if you want to take the determination date, your determination date should be after SOPL end date. That's the idea. So in this case, let's take one by one. They're asking you the assessable bonus for 23-24 tax year. A bonus in respect for the year ended 31st March 2023. So they are asking you, there is a year end 31st March 2023, which was paid on 30th April 2023. So the payment date is 30th April 2023. Now, the bonus was voted on 1st March 2023. Now, keep in mind, voted date is basically the determination date. So that is the determination date. So the determination date is 1st March 2023. Anyways, out of these 2 dates, first thing you have to understand is you can take your SOPL end date for comparison. If determination date is given to you, you have to think about the SOPL end date. The SOPL end date is 31st March 2023. That is 31st March 2023. So you can only choose 2 dates out of these 2. ഇതിനകത്ത് ഏതെങ്കിലും ഒരെണ്ണമേ സെലക്ട് ചെയ്യാൻ വേണ്ടി പറ്റത്തുള്ളൂ. SOP-യിൽ എൻഡ് ഡേറ്റ് എടുക്കണമെന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ അതിന് മുൻപ് ഡിറ്റർമിനേഷൻ സംഭവിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ടായിരിക്കണം. യെസ്, അതാണ് ഇവിടുത്തെ കേസ്. അപ്പൊ നിങ്ങൾ SOP-യിൽ എൻഡ് ഡേറ്റ് ആയിരിക്കും കമ്പയർ ചെയ്യുന്നത്. അപ്പൊ ഈ 2 ഡേറ്റിൽ ആദ്യം സംഭവിക്കുന്ന ഡേറ്റ് ഏതാണ്? 31st March 2023. That is the first date. So this is earliest. And this belongs to 20 to 23 tax year. So you cannot take the first case. Second one. A bonus in respect for the year ended 31st March 2024. So the year end is 31st March 2024. 31st March 2024. And it was paid on 30th April 2024. So it was paid on 30th April 2024. It was paid on 30th April 2024. The payment date. Now, the determination date is also given. It is 1st April 2024. 1st April 2024 ആണ് determination date. അപ്പൊ നമുക്ക് ഇതിനകത്തൊന്ന് earlier date കണ്ടുപിടിക്കണം. Again, P&L അല്ലെങ്കിൽ determination ഏതെങ്കിലും ഒരെണ്ണമേ ചൂസ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റത്തുള്ളൂ. P&L ഡേറ്റ് എടുക്കണമെന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ അതിന് മുൻപ് ഡിറ്റർമിനേഷൻ സംഭവിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ടായിരിക്കണം. ഇവിടെ നേരെ ഓപ്പോസിറ്റ് ആണ്. അപ്പൊ നമ്മൾ ഏതാ കമ്പാരിസൺ എടുക്കുന്നത്? ഡിറ്റർമിനേഷൻ ഡേറ്റ്. എന്നിട്ട് ഈ 2 ഡേറ്റ് നമ്മൾ കമ്പയർ ചെയ്തിട്ട് ഇതിൽ ഏതാണ് earlier എന്ന് നോക്കാം. ഇവിടുത്തെ earlier date എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് ഏതാണ്? Which is 1st April 2024. 1st April 2024 basically is 23-24 tax year. Okay, so that belongs to our relevant tax year. Next one is director's fee paid on 10th April 2023. So it was paid on 10th April 2023 and the P&L is 31st March 2023 and the fees were voted on 1st March 2023. So this was on 1st March 2023. So this is the situation. Again, you can only choose one out of these 2. So if you want to take the SOPL end date, determination has to happen before that. Yes, that is correct. Determination happened before that. So we'll take SOPL end date. This end date, earlier date select cheyanam. Earlier date is 31st March 2023. And again, keep in mind that is 20 to 23 tax year. അപ്പോൾ നമുക്ക് അത് എടുക്കാൻ പറ്റത്തില്ല. So obviously the answer is option A, option B, and option D. Option D as well. I did not discuss option D, but I'll discuss that as well. Director paid on 30th April 2024. So it was paid on 30th April 2024. Now, it is in respect of 31st March 2024. And the SOPL ended, the determination date was 30th March 2024. 30th March 2024. അപ്പൊ ഈ 2 ഡേറ്റിൽ ഏതെങ്കിലും ഒരു ഡേറ്റ് നമുക്ക് ചൂസ് ചെയ്യാൻ വേണ്ടി പറ്റത്തുള്ളൂ. അപ്പൊ നമുക്ക് SOPL എൻഡ് ഡേറ്റ് എടുക്കണമെന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ അതിന് മുൻപ് എന്ത് സംഭവിച്ചിരിക്കണം? ഡിറ്റർമിനേഷൻ സംഭവിച്ചിരിക്കണം. യെസ്, അത് ശരിയാണ്. സോ വി വിൽ കമ്പയർ ദീസ് 2 ഡേറ്റ്സ്. ഇതിൽ earlier ഡേറ്റ് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് 31st March 2024 ആണ്. ദാറ്റ് ഇസ് 23-24 ടാക്സ് ഇയർ. അപ്പൊ നിലവിലെ 2 സിറ്റുവേഷനിലാണ് 23-24 ടാക്സ് ഇയർ വരുന്നത്. സിറ്റുവേഷൻ B ആൻഡ് സിറ്റുവേഷൻ D. So I hope that was clear. Also, students who are doing self-study, make sure that you are aware of some theory aspect related to collection of tax at source, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ payee. Okay, so payee, pay as you earn, or TDS, or collection of tax at source. So from your salary, automatically the tax amount is collected by the HMRC. Now this is payee. This is called as pay as you earn. Now this system is implemented through a payrolling system where on a monthly basis നിങ്ങളുടെ സാലറിയിൽ നിന്ന് ഒരു ടാക്സ് എമൗണ്ട് HMRCക്ക് ഇൻഫോം ചെയ്തിട്ട് നമ്മൾ കൊടുക്കുന്നതായിരിക്കും. എന്നിട്ട് അതിന് ശേഷമുള്ള സാലറിയാണ് നിങ്ങളുടെ കയ്യിലേക്ക് വരുന്നത്. This is basically payrolling. Okay. Now keep in mind the process and the procedures are given here. You can read it. ഇത് വലിയ relevant അല്ല. ഇതിനകത്ത് കുറച്ച് ഫോംസ് ഉണ്ട്. അതാണ് ഇവിടെ relevant. One is the P60 form. So എന്താണ് P60 form എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്? So after the tax year end, annual totals of gross pay, tax, NIC deducted for each employees are shown on a P60 form and given to the employee to help them complete their annual tax return. So already pay ആയിട്ടൊക്കെ എത്ര പോയിട്ടുണ്ട്, എത്രയായിരുന്നു ടോട്ടൽ സാലറി, അതിന്റെ ടാക്സ് ഡിഡക്ഷൻസും കാര്യങ്ങളെല്ലാം കാണിച്ചിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു ഫോമാണ്. ഇത് ഉപയോഗിച്ചിട്ട് അവർക്ക് അവരുടെ ആനുവൽ ടാക്സ് റിട്ടേൺ ഫയൽ ചെയ്യാൻ ഹെൽപ്പ് ചെയ്യാൻ വേണ്ടി പറ്റും. ദാറ്റ് ഇസ് എ P60 ഫോം. ദർ ഇസ് P11D. എംപ്ലോയീസിന് റിസീവ് ചെയ്യുന്ന ടാക്സബിൾ ബെനിഫിറ്റുകൾ, അതായത് സാലറിക്ക് പുറമെ അവർക്ക് കിട്ടുന്ന ടാക്സബിൾ ബെനിഫിറ്റുകൾ, കാർ ബെനിഫിറ്റ്, ലിവിംഗ് അക്കോമഡേഷൻ ബെനിഫിറ്റ് പോലത്തെ ബെനിഫിറ്റുകളെ കുറിച്ചുള്ള എക്സ്പ്ലനേഷൻ കൊടുക്കുന്നത്. അതുമായിട്ട് ബന്ധപ്പെട്ട് ടാക്സ് എലമെന്റ്സും ടാക്സബിൾ എമൗണ്ടും കാണിക്കുന്നതാണ് P11D ഫോം. Employer also completes a form P11D for each director and employee with taxable benefits not already reported and taxed under RTA. So ഇത് ഓൾറെഡി പേയിൽ പോകാത്തതാണ്, അതായത് പേ ആസ് യു ഏൺ അല്ലെ, ടാക്സ് ഡിഡക്റ്റഡ് അറ്റ് സോഴ്സിൽ ഇതിന്റെ ടാക്സ് പോകുന്നില്ല. അപ്പൊ അതിന് വേണ്ടിയിട്ട് ഈ ടാക്സബിൾ ബെനിഫിറ്റിന് വേണ്ടിയിട്ട് വേറൊരു ഫോം ക്രിയേറ്റ് ചെയ്യുവാണ് P11D ഫോം എന്നാണ് അതിന് പറയുന്നത്. ആൻഡ് ദെൻ യു ഹാവ് another one. ഓക്കെ, പേറോളിംഗ് സിസ്റ്റം എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ ബിസിനസ്സുകൾക്ക് ഒരു പേറോളിംഗ് സോഫ്റ്റ്വെയർ കാണും. ആ പേറോളിംഗ് സോഫ്റ്റ്വെയർ ഉപയോഗിച്ചിട്ട് ആ ഇൻഡിവിജ്വലിന്റെ ടാക്സ് കാൽക്കുലേഷൻസ് എല്ലാം നടത്തി റിമൈനിങ് എമൗണ്ട് ആണ് അയാളുടെ കയ്യിലേക്ക് കൊടുക്കുന്നത്. പേറോളിലേക്ക് നോർമലി സാലറി പോലത്തെ കാര്യങ്ങളാണ് കയറി വരുന്നത്, ടാക്സിബിൾ ബെനിഫിറ്റുകളുടെ കാൽക്കുലേഷൻ കയറി വരാറില്ല. Now, there is also something known as P45 showing the total pay and tax deducted from the date of leaving. So when an employee is leaving their employment, ആ സമയത്ത് അവർക്ക് കൊടുക്കുന്ന ഒരു ഫോമാണ് P45 ഫോം. അതിന്റെ കണ്ടന്റ് ഇവിടെ കൊടുത്തിട്ടുണ്ട്. Make sure you just have a quick read because recently in the examination this area was tested. We are moving to chapter 5. So in chapter 5, this is a pretty interesting question and I get a lot of doubts related to this question. So sometimes students ask like, why is this amount additional benefit charge on living accommodation കണ്ടുപിടിക്കുന്നത് cost of living accommodation minus 75,000 into 2.25% into time apportionment അല്ലേ? പിന്നെ എന്താ അവർ അങ്ങനെ ചെയ്യാത്തതെന്ന് നിങ്ങൾ റിക്വയർമെന്റ് ശ്രദ്ധിച്ചു വായിക്കണം. On what figure will Jamie's additional living accommodation benefit be calculated? അതായത് ഏത് എമൗണ്ടിന്റെ മേലാണ് അവർ ഈ കാൽക്കുലേഷൻ, ഈ 2.25% കാൽക്കുലേഷൻ ചെയ്യാൻ വേണ്ടി പോകുന്നത്. സോ they are not asking you to calculate the additional benefit charge. They are asking you on what amount the calculation will be made. So cost of living accommodation, additional benefit charge on living accommodation, luxury property ആണെങ്കിൽ additional benefit charge on luxury property is equal to cost of living accommodation minus 75,000 into 2.25% into time apportionment as required. അപ്പൊ ഇവര് നമ്മളോട് ചോദിച്ചത് ഈ കോസ്റ്റ് ഓഫ് ലിവിംഗ് അക്കോമഡേഷൻ മൈനസ് 75,000 ഫിഗർ ആണ് അവർ നമ്മളോട് ചോദിക്കുന്നത്. അതിൽ കോസ്റ്റ് ഓഫ് ലിവിംഗ് അക്കോമഡേഷൻ ഇസ് ഈക്വൽ ടു യുവർ പർച്ചേസ് കോസ്റ്റ് പ്ലസ് എനി ഇംപ്രൂവ്മെന്റ് കോസ്റ്റ് ബിഫോർ ദ കറന്റ് ടാക്സ് ഇയർ, ബിഫോർ 23-24 ടാക്സ് ഇയർ. അപ്പോൾ പർച്ചേസ് കോസ്റ്റ് പ്ലസ് improvement cost before 23-24. And if you have purchased a property before 6 years, 6 years മുമ്പ് purchase ചെയ്താണെങ്കിൽ you have to take the market value. Okay, let's read the question. Jamie's employer has provided him with the living accommodation since 1st July 2020. The apartment has been purchased in June 2013. So this property was purchased more than 6 years ago for 126,000. അപ്പോൾ നിങ്ങൾ cost of living accommodation കണ്ടുപിടിക്കുന്ന സമയത്ത് you have to take the market value instead of the purchase cost. So that is equal to market value, which is 209,000 plus any improvement cost before the current tax year. So there was an improvement cost of 14,000 in October 2017. ഇതിനെ കുറിച്ച് ഞാൻ ക്ലാസ്സുകളിൽ പറഞ്ഞിട്ടുണ്ട്. നിങ്ങളുടെ മാർക്കറ്റ് വാല്യൂവിന് മുൻപുള്ള ഒരു ഇംപ്രൂവ്മെന്റ് കോസ്റ്റ് നിങ്ങൾ കൺസിഡർ ചെയ്യേണ്ട ആവശ്യമില്ല, കാരണം ആ ഇംപ്രൂവ്മെന്റ് കൂടെ കൂട്ടിയിട്ടാണ് നിങ്ങളുടെ മാർക്കറ്റ് വാല്യൂ സെറ്റ് ചെയ്തിരിക്കുന്നത്. അപ്പൊ നിങ്ങൾ അത് കൺസിഡർ ചെയ്യേണ്ട ആവശ്യമില്ല. അപ്പൊ രണ്ട് ഇംപ്രൂവ്മെന്റ് കോസ്റ്റുകളാണ് നിങ്ങൾ ഇഗ്നോർ ചെയ്യേണ്ടത്. കറന്റ് ടാക്സ് ഇയറിന്റെ ഇംപ്രൂവ്മെന്റ് കോസ്റ്റ്, അതായത് 23-24 ഇംപ്രൂവ്മെന്റ് കോസ്റ്റും നിങ്ങൾ ഇഗ്നോർ ചെയ്യണം. അതേപോലെ മാർക്കറ്റ് വാല്യൂവിന് മുൻപുള്ള ഇംപ്രൂവ്മെന്റ് കോസ്റ്റുകളും ഇഗ്നോർ ചെയ്യണം. സോ ഇംപ്രൂവ്മെന്റ് കോസ്റ്റ് ഇസ് 0 ഹിയർ. സോ ബേസിക്കലി ദ വാല്യൂ ഇസ് 209,000. So your cost of living accommodation is equal to 209,000 minus 75,000 കൂടെ ചെയ്ത് കഴിയുന്ന ആ ഫിഗറിന്റെ മേലാണ് നമ്മൾ 2.25% കാൽക്കുലേറ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്. സോ വാട്ട് ഇസ് ദാറ്റ് ഫിഗർ? It is 134,000. So answer is 134,000. So അവിടെ കുറച്ച് ഏറെ adjustments ഉണ്ട്. Many students are trying to do it multiply with 2.25%. You will not get your answer. അതേപോലെ some students are taking the original purchase cost. If the purchase happened before 6 years ago, you have to take the market value. Another problem is improvement cost. മാർക്കറ്റ് വാല്യൂവിന് മുമ്പുള്ള ഇംപ്രൂവ്മെന്റ് കോസ്റ്റ് എടുക്കേണ്ട ആവശ്യമില്ല. ആ ഇംപ്രൂവ്മെന്റ് ഒക്കെ മാർക്കറ്റ് വാല്യൂവിൽ ഓൾറെഡി ഇൻകോർപ്പറേറ്റഡ് ആയിരിക്കും. So there is a question on private use of asset. A video camera costing 700 was purchased for M for the use by his employer on 6th April 2022. M purchased the video camera on 6th April 2023 for 150 when the market value was 250. So they are asking you what is the benefit accessible on M for the tax year 23-24. So in 23-24 ആൾ ഈ ക്യാമറ സ്വന്തമായിട്ട് വാങ്ങുവാണ്. So this is acquisition benefit in 23-24. Start of 23-24 itself, they have acquired the asset and it is not a gift, they have paid an amount of 150 and acquired it. So acquisition benefit is equal to higher of A and B. So A is equal to your current market value less amount paid. So the current market value of that asset is equal to 250 and the amount paid is equal to 150. So the difference is 100. Second case B. B is equal to the market value when originally provided. So when it was given to them, the original market value was 700. And from this, you need to deduct any amount paid. The amount paid is equal to 150. And from this, you need to deduct already taxed amount. The already taxed amount is the usage benefit of 22-23 tax year. കാരണം ഒരു വർഷം മാത്രമേ യൂസ് ചെയ്തിട്ടുള്ളൂ ആ usage benefit. So usage benefit is equal to, it is 20% of the market value at the time when it was given. So that is equal to 700 into 20%. Throughout the tax year use ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ട്. So the difference is equal to So the difference is equal to 420. So the higher value in 420 aanu. The higher value is 420. 410, sorry, 410. There is a deadline for the filing of giving of these forms. Adum onnu this material use cheyyunnathu nalladayirikkum. How much of the leasing cost will be deductible in calculating Cedric's adjusted trading profit for the year ended 31st May 2024? So, this question, I hope you are aware of the fact, for a car whose CO2 emission is more than 50 grams per kilometer, you lease a car. ഇങ്ങനത്തെ കാറുകൾ ലീസിന് എടുക്കുന്ന സമയത്ത് വരുന്ന ലീസ് കോസ്റ്റ് 100% ടാക്സ് ഡിഡക്റ്റബിൾ അല്ല. 85% is deductible, the remaining 15% is non-deductible. So we have to look into the CO2 emission of the car. It is 125 grams per kilometer. അപ്പൊ ഈ സിറ്റുവേഷനിൽ നമ്മൾ എന്താ ചെയ്യാൻ വേണ്ടി പോകുന്നത്? ഈ ലീസ് കോസ്റ്റിന്റെ 85% ഡിഡക്റ്റബിൾ ആണ്. And they are asking you what is deductible amount. So what you are going to do here is equal to 3,100 into 85% is deductible and the remaining 15% is non-deductible. നിങ്ങൾ calculate ചെയ്യുന്ന സമയത്ത് you have to add back the 15%, but here they are asking you what is the deductible amount, so the answer is 2635. Now, Pearl commenced trading on 1st January 2023, making her first set of accounts for a 15 period ended to 31st March 2024. So it is a 15-month SOPL that she is creating, and her tax-adjusted trading profit for the first 15 month to 31st March 2024 is 49,700, and for the year ending 31st March 2025 is 33,000. That is an estimate. നിങ്ങളോട് ചോദിക്കുവാണ് what is the trading income accessible for 23-24 tax year. So you have to keep in mind when you do the calculation, നമുക്ക് 23-24 മാത്രം മതി. അപ്പോൾ ഇവിടെ നിങ്ങൾ ചിന്തിക്കേണ്ട ഒരു കാര്യം, 23-24 starts on 6th April 2023 to 5th April 2024. So that is 12 months. നമുക്ക് ഈ തന്നിരിക്കുന്ന ഡേറ്റ is from 1st January 2023. ട്രേഡ് തുടങ്ങിയ ഡേറ്റ് തൊട്ട് 31st March 2024 ആണ്. So this is from 1st January 2023 to 31st March 2024. അങ്ങനെ 15 മാസത്തെയാണ്. അതിൽ നമുക്ക് വേണ്ടത് from here, from 6th April തൊട്ടാണ് നമുക്ക് വേണ്ടത്, which is ideally 12 months. So the amount given to you is 49,700. 49,700 is for 15 months. You need the value for 12 months. So that is equal to 49,700 into 12 divided by 15. So the value is 39,760. This is the amount of profit that is taxable for 23-24 tax year. That is 39,760. Next one. Alan began trading on 1st March 2023, preparing accounts to 5th April each year. So he prepared accounts with tax-adjusted trading profit as follows. So he started trading on 1st March 2023. ഈ question are the tricky element എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. The requirement was to calculate the assessable amount for 22-23 tax year. ഇതിന്റെ SOPL end ചെയ്യുന്നത് 23-24 tax yearലാണ്. But many students, what they did is they took 12 months from this 19,660. നിങ്ങളോട് ചോദിച്ചു, if the question was what was the assessable profit for 23-24 tax year, yes, your answer was correct. That is equal to 19,660 into 12 divided by 13. But the question was what was the assessable profit for 22-23 tax year. അപ്പം ട്രേഡ് തുടങ്ങിയ ആദ്യത്തെ 1 month, the first month falls in the first month of trade falls in 22-23 tax year. So basically they are asking you 19,660 divided by 13 into 1, and the answer is 1512. The answer is 1512. Next one, Morgan ceased trading on 31st March 2024. This is a cessation of trade. He prepared accounts with tax-adjusted trading profit as follows. For the year ended 31st March 2023, it is 16,500. For the year ended 31st March 2024, it is 10,500. What is the amount of assessable profit for 23-24 tax? It's a very straightforward question. Correct tax year decide ചെയ്യാനുള്ളതാണ്. Year end date നോക്കണം. It is 31st March 2024 belongs to 23-24 tax year. So the answer is 10,500. Always decide the tax year using the end date. അതായത് നിങ്ങളുടെ SOPL end date വെച്ചിട്ട് വേണം നിങ്ങൾ ടാക്സ് ഇയർ ഡിസൈഡ് ചെയ്യാൻ. അപ്പൊ 31st March 2023 എന്ന് പറയുമ്പോൾ അത് ഏതാ ടാക്സ് ഇയർ? 22-23 ടാക്സ് ഇയർ. 31st March 2024 എന്ന് പറയുമ്പോൾ അത് ഏതാ ടാക്സ് ഇയർ? 23-24 ടാക്സ് ഇയർ. അപ്പൊ you have to take 10,500 as your answer. So next is chapter 8, capital allowance. What is the maximum amount of capital allowance which Deborah can claim for the tax year 23-24? The tax return down value brought forward on the main pool was 32,000. The balance on the special pool was 15,000. During the tax year 23-24, they spent 7,000 on an equipment and sold a main pool plan for 6,000, which originally cost 8,000. They're asking for the maximum capital allowance. And this is exactly 12 months SOPL ആണ്. അപ്പം time apportionment ആവശ്യമില്ല. Already there is a blank column ഇടുക, ഒരു main pool, ഒരു special pool column കൊടുക്കുക. So starting off with the opening balance, TWDV brought forward. In your main pool, the opening balance is 32,000 and here it is 15,000. Then there were some purchases. There is a purchase on an equipment. Equipment is a main pool item which qualifies for AIA. So additions for AIA. That is an equipment. Equipment was purchased for 7,000. This entire 7,000 will be written off as AIA. So this entire amount will be written off as AIA. So that is, you can immediately write that to your capital allowance column as well. Then your remaining balance, there was a disposal from the main pool. The cost was 8,000. The proceeds is 6,000, whichever is lower. So you are going to set off 6,000 from here. So you will calculate the balance. The remaining balance is equal to 26,000 and 15,000. You will calculate WDV for this. 18% and 6%. So for 18%, this into 18%. And this is equal to this amount into 6%. And immediately update your capital allowance column as well. And take the total of your capital allowance column. So AIA write off the amount and WDV could add 12,580. That is your answer. So this was the answer. Main pool balance is a special pool balance. Equipment is eligible for AIA, so full amount write off. Then there was a disposal, lower figure select nameless balance WDV at 18 and 6% calculate capital allowance call update you will get your maximum capital allowance of 12,580. Then the tax written down brought forward on Petro's main pool was 300,000. There was no balance on the special pool. During the tax year 23-24, Petro purchased equipment for 450,000 and spent 650 on the installation of a cooling system as an integral feature of the factory used in Petro's business. So this is integral feature. So in your calculation, you should have a blank column, a main pool, and a special pool as well. There was an opening balance in your main pool, TWDV brought forward in your main pool. The main pool balance was 300,000. Now you have to write additions qualifying AIA. AIA. So in that, always the preference. Main pool or special pool AIA, the first preference will be for special pool item. So first I'm going to give AIA for that 6,50,000 full AIA. So less AIA for that cooling system. So make sure you update your capital allowance column and just make sure it's a 12-month SOPL. Current 12-month SOPL AIA 1 million your AIA has to be time apportioned. Then the next value is use 3,50,000. So remaining that you can use is 3,50,000. That 3,50,000 AIA can also. So out of this 4,50,000 equipment in the case, 3,50,000 use. That means the remaining out of the 4,50,000, you have used 3,50,000. The remaining will be shown in the main pool. And then you can calculate your nameless balance. There was no other disposals. You can calculate your nameless balance, and on which you have to calculate your WDV. So let's WDV is equal to this amount into 18%. So the answer is negative 72. So 1,072,000. Next one. Van ceased trading on 31st December 2023. So what is the peculiarity when you cease trading? In the final year, you are not supposed to give AIA, FIA or WDA. But if the nameless balance is positive, we call it as balancing allowance, and the entire amount will be transferred to the capital allowance column. If the nameless balance is negative, we call it as balancing charge, and it will be taken as a negative figure to the capital allowance column. Van ceased trading on 31st December 2023, having been self-employed since 1st January 2010. On 1st January 2023, the tax written down value of her plant of the main pool was 6,200. So she had a main pool balance of 6,200. She purchased a computer for 1,600. That main pool like directly AIA there is no AIA. So the last year of trade, the last year of trade opening balance add which is 6,200. 6,200 purchases purchases add the purchase amount is 1,600. Now disposals as usual disposals deduct. So there were disposals in the main pool 9,800. So minus 9,800. So ഇവിടെ പ്രത്യേകത എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ ഈ 1,600 AIA ഒന്നും കൊടുക്കത്തില്ല. Purchases are just simply added to the main pool. And the disposals as usual നമ്മൾ lower of cost and disposal proceeds എന്നുള്ള രീതിയിൽ കാണിക്കും. If you get a positive figure, it is a balancing allowance. If you get a negative figure, it is a balancing charge. Here you have a balancing charge of 2,000. So this is what you call as balancing charge. Negative figure ആണ്. So capital allowance also it will be a negative figure ആയിട്ടായിരിക്കും പോകുന്നത്. That means you will add it to your tax adjusted trade profit. So the answer was 2,000. And the last question for this chapter is Dominic incurred the following expenditure on a new factory constructed to be used in the business during the year ended 31st March 2024. Above, they are asking you for SBA. Now keep in mind SBA calculation. How do you do the SBA calculation? It is the cost amount into 3% into from the usage date to the year end. So the usage date is from November 2023. Year end is 31st March 2024. November, December, January, February, March. So that is a total of 5 months. So we need to find out what are the allowable cost. Land cannot be taken. Leveling cost of land is considered. Factory building is considered. Planning permission is not considered. So the total allowable cost is equal to it is 10,000 plus 2,80,000, which is equal to 10,000 plus 2,80,000. So the allowable cost is equal to 290,000. Now the calculation SBA is equal to 290,000 into 3% into 5 divided by 12 from the usage date to the year end. So that is equal to this amount into 3% into 5 divided by 12. That is 3,625. Next is related to trading loss. Frank has been trading for many years. His recent tax-adjusted trading result were as follows. What is the Frank's assessable trading income for the tax year 23-24? So for the year ended 31st March 2022, he has made a loss of 17,500. So last year he made a loss. Then in 31st March 2023, so let me just write it in tax year basis. For the year ended 31st March 2022, which is 21-22 tax year, there was a loss. So the loss figure was 17,500. Then for the year ended 31st March 2023, which is 20-23 tax year, he has made a profit of 8,250. Again, for the year ended 31st March 2024, which is 23-24 tax year, he has made a profit figure of 11,150. So this is the situation. Now, the question is asking you, what is the assessable amount for 23-24? So you might have a tendency to directly take 11,150, but keep in mind, from this 11,150, you can also set up the loss. Carry forward the loss set off. So I'm going to draw a loss memo here. So I know that my total loss is 17,500. Our version set off here, let's carry forward and set off against 22-23 profit. So I have set off against 8,250. So the remaining loss in the remaining loss amount is 9,250. This 9,250 set off here. This is carry forward and set off against 23-24 trade profit. So that is equal to, you will set off this figure. So the difference is equal to 1,900. Derek's business has a trading profit in the tax year 23-24 and he wants to set off against the total income in the same year. Keep in mind, whenever you are setting against your total income, it is higher of 50,000 or 25% of your adjusted total income. Adjusted total income is your total income minus gross amount of PPC. So the answer is higher of 50,000 and 25% of total income after pension contribution, but before charity donation. So you have to deduct PPC, but you don't have to consider charity donation. So the answer is option C. Finally, and Andrea has been in business for several years. She has other incomes of 3,900 for 22-23 and 5,100 for 23-24. She wishes to claim maximum loss as soon as possible. So what is her total income for 22-23 tax year before deducting personal allowance? So 22-23 tax year in the amount ആണ് ചോദിച്ചിരിക്കുന്നത്. 22-23 എന്ന് പറയുമ്പോൾ this is the profit. Carry back relief ആണ് നമുക്ക് ഇവിടെ കൊടുക്കാൻ വേണ്ടി പറ്റുന്നത്. What is the total income for the tax year 22-23? What you can do is, first you will do a current year claim. Okay. So you made a loss for year ended 31st March 2024 ലാണ് നിങ്ങൾ ലോസ് വരുത്തിയിരിക്കുന്നത്. This is a loss making year. ഇതിനെ നമ്മൾ 23-24 tax year എന്ന് പറയും. നിങ്ങളുടെ ലോസിന്റെ എമൗണ്ട് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് 19,660 ആണ്. So your option is set off against current year general income. That is your first option. So your current year general income is given in the question. It is 5,100. So current year you have a general income of 5,100. So the remaining loss is 14,560. This 14,560 will be set off against your carry back relief for 22-23 as early as possible. So the previous year the amount was 14,900. You will set it off against your previous year. The remaining loss 14,560 ആണ്. നമ്മൾ 14,560 മാത്രമേ സെറ്റ് ഓഫ് ചെയ്തുള്ളൂ. അപ്പൊ നമ്മുടെ ലോസിന്റെ എമൗണ്ട് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് എത്രയാണ്? 0 ആണ്. നമുക്കിനി ലോസ് ഒന്നുമില്ല ക്യാരി ഫോർവേഡ് ചെയ്യാൻ. പക്ഷെ നമ്മുടെ പ്രീവിയസ് ഇയറിലെ ജനറൽ ഇൻകം എത്രയായിരിക്കും? So out of your total amount was 14,560. 900 you set off 14,560. അതിന്റെ കൂടെ you have to add, നിങ്ങൾ set off ചെയ്ത 14,560 add ചെയ്യണം. അതിന്റെ കൂടെ you have to also add there was a general income of 3,900. So there is a general income of 3,900 as well. So the answer is 4,900 minus 14,650 plus 3,900. So answer is just a minute. They're asking you as early as possible. But as early as possible എന്ന് പറയുമ്പോൾ നിങ്ങൾ ആദ്യം ചെയ്യാൻ വേണ്ടി പോകുന്ന സെറ്റ് ഓഫ് എന്തുമായിട്ടായിരിക്കും? പ്രീവിയസ് ഇയറിന്റെ ജനറൽ ഇൻകം ആയിട്ടായിരിക്കും നിങ്ങൾ സെറ്റ് ഓഫ് ചെയ്യാൻ വേണ്ടി പോകുന്നത്. സോ നിങ്ങളുടെ പ്രീവിയസ് ഇയറിന്റെ ജനറൽ ഇൻകം, യുവർ ടോട്ടൽ ജനറൽ ഇൻകം ഫോർ ദ പ്രീവിയസ് ഇയർ, in your total general income for 22-23 is 14,900 plus that 3,100. That is your total general income for the previous tax year. അത് full നിങ്ങൾ എന്ത് ചെയ്തിരിക്കും? 3,900 ആണ്. 3,900. So from this you are going to make a total deduction of, your total loss is 19,660. Carry back relief കൊടുക്കുകയാണ്. കറണ്ട് ഇയർ ചെയ്യുന്നതിന് മുമ്പ് തന്നെ carry back ചെയ്യുക, because as early as possible. So carry back relief കൊടുക്കുകയാണ്. This entire amount will be written off. You are left with nothing. നിങ്ങൾ ലോസ് മെമ്മോ വരയ്ക്കുവാണെങ്കിൽ your total loss is 19,660. അതിൽ you will have a carry back relief of 18,800. You are left with an unrelieved loss of 860. ഈ 860 എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് നിങ്ങളുടെ കറണ്ട് ഇയർ ജനറൽ ഇൻകം ആയിട്ട് നിങ്ങൾ സെറ്റ് ഓഫ് ചെയ്യും. So as early as possible എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ carry back current year and carry forward. So that is the rule. So the answer was 22-23 എത്ര വരുമെന്നായിരുന്നു? So the answer is 0. 22-23 you will have 0 as your general income. Then identify whether each of the following statements about terminal loss reliefs are correct or incorrect. A claim for terminal loss relief must be made by 5th April 2027. No, it is by 5th April 2028. അതായത് 23-24 tax year നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ഒരു terminal loss relief claim ചെയ്യണമെങ്കിൽ it is by 2028. This statement is incorrect. This relief is given against trading profit for the tax year of permanent discontinuance and the 3 preceding tax years on a LIFO basis. That is correct. Finally, this was a question in your kit. What is the maximum loss relief you can make against general income? So it is higher of 50,000 or 25% of adjusted total income. Next is partnership. Vanessa and Josh has traded in partnership for several years, preparing accounts to 31st March each year. Phil was admitted to the partnership on 1st November 2023. So there is already Vanessa and Josh in the partnership and a new partner joined the business on 1st November 2023. What is the basis period for Vanessa, the existing partner, for 23-24 tax year? പുതിയതായിട്ട് ഒരു പാർട്ണർ വന്നതിന്റെ പേരിൽ existing partnerക്ക് basis period change ആവില്ല. Okay, just keep in mind, since a new partner joined, the existing partner is not affected with their basis period. So for the existing partner, the basis period is as usual, from the start of the year till the end of the year end, that is 31st March 2024. Xavier and Yolanda have traded in partnership for several years. Their profit sharing arrangements are given. Their annual salaries 4% interest on capital. Profit sharing ratio is 2:1 ratio. The tax adjusted trading profit for the year ended 31st March 2024 was 42,300. What amount of profit will be allocated to Xavier for the year ended 31st March 2024? So in order to do that calculation, first let us find out what is the profit attributable. So the total partnership profit. Total partnership profit is 42,300. ആ 42,300-ല് രണ്ട് പേരുടെ salary deduct ചെയ്യേണ്ടതായിട്ട് വരും. So salary is equal to, you have to deduct the salary of 6,700 as well as you have to deduct the salary of 4,400 as well. Then from this, you have to deduct interest on capital. So when you deduct the interest on capital, that is equal to, you can do a separate calculation for that. In that question, they told you the capital is 33,000. So 33,000 into 4% ഉണ്ട്. അതേപോലെ തന്നെ there is a capital of 27,000. So 27,000 into 4% ഉണ്ട്. So that is equal to, so you have to find out your remaining profit. The remaining profit figure is 28,800. This is split in the ratio. It is given in the question 2:1 ratio. It is split ചെയ്തു കൊടുക്കണം. Okay. Now, if that is the case, Xavier is eligible for profit share of Xavier എന്തൊക്കെ കിട്ടും? Xavierന് ഈ 28,800-ല് ഒരു 2/3 proportion കിട്ടും. Salary of Xavierന്റെ salary എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് 6,700 കിട്ടും. അതേപോലെ തന്നെ Xavierന്റെ interest on capital എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് 1,320 ആണ്. So Xavier is eligible for these three items. So that is equal to 28,800 into 2/3 plus 6,700 plus 1,320. So this is the total income for Xavier, which is 27,220. Larimer and Amper have been in partnership for many years. The partnership agreement allocates partners' interest of 5% annually on capital invested. The balance of any profit is shared in 35:65 ratio. On 31st December 2023, Lamer's capital account had a balance of 36,000 and Amper had a balance of 24,000. And they had a tax-adjusted trade profit of 120,000. So here, the tax-adjusted trade profit of total partnership profit is 120,000. അവിടെ ആകെപ്പാടെ ഡിഡക്ഷൻ ആയിട്ട് വരുന്നത് ഇൻട്രസ്റ്റ് ഓൺ ക്യാപിറ്റൽ ആണ്. So less interest on capital. So when you take the interest on capital, you have to keep in mind there is a 5% interest on 5% interest for Lamer of 36,000 and there is a 5% interest on 24,000. That is equal to 5% into 36,000 and this is equal to 5% into 24,000. So the difference is equal to 117,000. And this 170,000 is split in the ratio 35:65. Above, ഇവിടെ Lamer is eligible for 35% of this. So 35% of 1,17,000. അതിന്റെ കൂടെ you have to add the interest on capital. Interest on capital for Lamer is 1,800. So ഇവിടെ സ്റ്റുഡൻസ് വരുത്തുന്ന ഒരു കോമൺ മിസ്റ്റേക്ക് പറഞ്ഞു തരാം. നിങ്ങൾ പ്രോഫിറ്റ് ഷെയർ കറക്റ്റ് ആയിട്ട് ചെയ്യും, which is 4950. പക്ഷെ you forget to add the interest on capital. നിങ്ങളോട് ചോദിച്ച total income he receives from that partnership during 23-24 tax year. Share in profit and interest on capital, both are his income. So that is 42,750. Identify by clicking the relevant boxes below whether each of the following statements about taxation of partnership are true or false. A partner who has a trading loss for the tax year can choose whichever form of loss relief best suits his individual circumstance. That is true. Each partner is liable for any income tax due on other partner's share of partnership profit. False. Okay. So just keep in mind, partner is liable for only their share of profit. Liable to pay tax on their share of profit. എല്ലാവരുടെയും ഷെയർ ഓഫ് പ്രോഫിറ്റിന്റെ മേൽ ഒരാൾ ടാക്സ് അടയ്ക്കേണ്ട ആവശ്യമില്ല. സ്വന്തം പ്രോഫിറ്റ് ഷെയറിന്റെ മേൽ മാത്രം ടാക്സ് അടച്ചാൽ മതി. So that is the answer. L'Oreal and Hardy have traded in partnership for many years, preparing accounts to 31st December each year and sharing profits equally. The tax-adjusted trading profit for the year ended 31st December 2023 was 48,000. With effect from 1st October 2023, they changed their profit sharing arrangement. Change in profit sharing arrangement. So when you do the calculation, there should be a pre-change period and a post-change period. Change സംഭവിക്കുന്നതിന് മുൻപുള്ള പീരീഡും ചേഞ്ച് സംഭവിച്ചതിന് ശേഷമുള്ള ഒരു പീരീഡ് എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞിട്ട് ചേഞ്ച് ശേഷമുള്ള പീരീഡ് എന്നുള്ള രീതിയിൽ നമ്മൾ സ്പ്ലിറ്റ് ചെയ്യേണ്ടതായിട്ട് വരും. Now, when you do that, just a minute. So when you do the computation, you have to make sure that there should be a pre-change period and a post-change period. So what is this pre-change period? The period before the change, that is, the year end 31st December 2023. So from 1st January till 30th September, that period, that 9 months is the pre-change period. And from October till December, 31st December, that is a post-change period. That is a 3 months. So you have to split your calculation into 2. So when you do the calculation, the pre-change from 1st January to 30th September, which is equal to 48,000 into 9 divided by 12. So that is equal to 48,000 into 9 divided by 12. And this will be split equally between both the partners because their partnership profit sharing ratio is equal. Equally split cheyanana. So their profit sharing ratio is equal to this amount into 1 by 2. Okay, 18,000. And in the post-change period, that is from 1st October till 31st December, the value of 48,000 will only take 3 months value. Okay, so 3 months value is equal to 48,000 into 3 divided by 12. That 12,000. Now, this 12,000 will be split in the ratio 1/3 to Laurel and 2/3 to Hardy. So that is equal to this amount into 1 by 3 for Laurel and this amount into 2 by 3 for Hardy. Okay. have to take the total of this. And the question asked you to take the value for Laurel. So the value for Laurel is equal to 22,000. 22,000. The questions on NICs are pretty straightforward. You have plenty of questions related to NIC in your Kaplan kit. Make sure you practice those questions. You need to learn who is responsible for the payment and who suffers the tax. So just as a reminder, keep in mind, class 1 primary is suffered by the employee and paid by the employer. Class 1 secondary and class 1A is paid and suffered by the employer. Class 2 and class 4 is paid and suffered by self-employed. So this is the idea of who is paying and who is suffering, because in certain questions they ask you calculate the NIC that is suffered by the employee. So the NIC that is suffered by the employee is class 1 primary. Calculate the NIC that is suffered by the employer, which is class 1 secondary and class 1A. Calculate the amount that is suffered by self-employed, which is class 1, class 2 and class 4. So you need to learn who suffers and who pays the NIC so that you can crack the question. So now let us discuss some section C questions from income tax as well. Your study hub contains some wonderful questions from your section C of income tax. So make sure these are your list of questions: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 and 15. So there are a total of 15 questions. There are certain questions like patience, why, these questions, Ricardo, John, these also appear in your kit as well. But there are certain small changes in the adjustments for each of these questions. So make sure you go through these questions, even if it is in your kit. There are some additional adjustments there. You just focus on the additional adjustments only. So I am going to make you do a couple of questions. I'll start with Shiv. First one is, explain whether or not Shiv will be treated as a UK resident for the income tax purposes in the tax year 23-24. So they're asking you whether he is considered as a UK resident for the tax year 23-24. Up until the tax year 21-22, Shiv has been considered a UK resident for income tax purpose. Ideally, they actually meant it was 22-23 tax year. Okay, up until 22-23 tax year, they were considered as UK resident. And they're asking you for 23-24. അപ്പോൾ ഒരു ചെറിയ data missing ആണ്. 22-23 വരെ they were resident in UK for tax purpose. Shiv is single, lives with his mother in her house in London. His employment as a mining manager has been UK based. But in May 2023 and again in September, he was sent to overseas assignment of 7 weeks each. So the time he spent abroad is equal to 7 times 2 into 7 weeks is equal to each week you have 7 days. So that is a total of 98 days. So 7 weeks, there is 2 7 weeks, one in May and one in September. And that is a total of 7 days each. So that is 98 days. Then along with that, on 1st December 2023, he moved abroad to start a new work posting. So from December, January, February, March, for 3 months. Okay, so I'm just going to do a rough calculation here. 30 days in each month into 4 months. So he was abroad. So the total period he is abroad is 280. That means this is the overseas period. So we need to find out the UK days. They stayed in 23-24. So how many days he stayed in 23-24 tax year, which is equal to, out of the 365 days, 218 was spent overseas. The remaining 147 was spent in UK. Now, let's see whether the automatic overseas test is passed. So in order to pass the automatic overseas spend less than 16 days or 46 days. അത് രണ്ടും നടക്കത്തില്ല. Having a full-time job overseas, he did not have a full-time job till the end of the tax year. So that condition is also not satisfied. And spending less than 91 days എന്നുണ്ട് അതും ഇല്ല. So he is not automatically treated as a non-resident. So the second thing is automatically UK resident ആണോ? Spend more than 183 days? No. Have a full-time job in UK? No. Only home in UK and no other home overseas? No, he does not have a home. He is living with his mother. So automatic UK test satisfy ചെയ്തിട്ടില്ല. So ideally, the next is sufficient ties test. So I told you, in order to do a sufficient ties test, first you have to take the table. The number of days he has spent in UK is between this time frame and he was previously resident. So only one tie is required for him to meet the residency status. So നമ്മൾ നോക്കണം ഏതെങ്കിലും ties available ആണോ? Close family member is not, parent is not considered as close family member, spouse or minor child ആയിരിക്കണം. Okay, so let's read one by one. So at least one tie meet ചെയ്താൽ മതി. He has an accommodation in UK which is not his own property. അത് rented property ആയാലും കുഴപ്പമില്ല, മദറിന്റെ property ആയാലും കുഴപ്പമില്ല. He has an accommodation where he stays one day. Okay, that is one condition. He has substantive work in UK. He has been working in UK for a couple of, substantive work is 40 days, 3 hours a day. So he has been working that in UK. ബാക്കിയാണ് overseas work ചെയ്യുന്നത്. And spent previously resident and spent more than less than or equal to 90 days during the previous tax years. അതും satisfy ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ട്. അപ്പോൾ ഒരു ടൈ മീറ്റ് ചെയ്താൽ മതി. He is having more than one tie, so he is considered as a UK resident for 23-24 tax year. Please read the explanations, very clearly given, and these kind of questions can be expected. Next one. Kang, Ling and Ming have been in partnership since 2013, preparing accounts to 31st March. Ming left the partnership on 31st July 2023. Profits have been shared equally. Partnership had a trading profit of 148,800 for the year ended 31st March 2023, which is 20-23 tax year, and a profit of 136,800 for the year ended 31st March 2024, which is 23-24 tax year. Then he also has, Kang has a bank interest and a dividend income as well. So they're asking you, calculate the trading income assessment of Kang, Ling and Ming for each of the tax year 22-23 and 23-24. So, Ming and the partner is leaving in 31st July 2023, which is 23-24 tax year. Okay, അപ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ ചെയ്യുന്ന സമയത്ത് allocation of profit. March 2023, which is 20-23 tax year. So the total profit is equal to 148,800. It is be equally split between the partners. So we have K, L and M. K, L and M. It will be equally split among the partners. So this amount into this amount divided by 3. Okay, so that is for the first tax year. Then for profit for the year ended 31st March 2024, this is 23-24 tax year. Now, we have to do a split up. The total profit is 136,800. 136,800. Now here, one partner is leaving in between. So from 1st April 2023 till the partner is leaving, that is 30th June 2023, which is a total of, he is leaving on 31st July. Okay, so 31st July. 31st July. So 31st July means April, May, June, July, of a total of 4 months. So you have to split the profit, that is equal to into 4 divided by 12. And this figure has to be equally split between, divided by 3 partners. ഇതില് മിങ്ങും ഇൻവോൾവ് ആയിരിക്കും. Then after that, from 1st August 2023 to 31st March 2024, which is a total of 8 months, Ming is out of the story. So the remaining profit, that is 136,800 into 8 divided by 12. And this has to be split equally between the partners. So that is equal to this amount divided by 2. So the total profit is equal to so for each partner. For the year ended 31st March 2023, it is 49,600. For the profit will be equally split among the 3 partners. For the next year ended 31st March 2024, profit is split for the 4 months and the 8 months. And in the 4 months, you have to do an equal split up. And for the last 8 months, it has to be equal split up among K and L. So this is the assessable amount for each partners. Calculate Can's income tax liability for the tax year 23-24. He has a bank interest, savings income, and a dividend income of 3,000 as well. So computation of income tax liability. For Can, so he has a non-savings income, savings income, and a dividend income. So for his non-savings income, he has profit from partnership during the tax year. The profit from partnership is 6,800 for Can. Then there is interest. Interest is savings income. So he has an interest of 1,500. Then he has dividend income of 3,000. So you can calculate his total income, total / general income. Now, from this, there is no qualifying interest payment. You can deduct personal allowance. This is your total income, general income / net income also, because there is no qualifying deductions. You'll deduct your entire personal allowance bill, 12,570. So your taxable income. And do the income tax liability computation. Just calculate what is her total taxable income. So the total taxable income is 52,730. She is a additional higher rate taxpayer. So computation of income tax liability. Starting off with non-savings income first. അതിൽ തന്നെ ബേസിക് ആദ്യം കൊടുക്കണം. ബേസിക്കിൽ 37,700 into 20%. Then remaining out of the 48,230 minus 37,700 will be taxed at 40%. Then for savings income, there is a nil rate. First 500 will be taxed at 0%. The remaining income, that is out of 1,500, 500 will be taxed at higher rate of 40%. And for dividend income, irrespective of your taxpayer category, the dividend income nil rate has changed. The first 1,000 will be taxed at 0%, and the remaining 3,000 minus 1,000 will be taxed at the higher rate of 33.75%. This is equal to 37,700 into 20%. This is equal to then this is 0. This is equal to 1000 into 40%. This is 0. This is equal to 2000 into 33.75%. So your total $12,827. And the last part of the question is, what is the meaning between tax avoidance schemes and tax evasion? So tax avoidance is a legal method of reducing your tax liability using the loopholes in the tax system. And there are tax avoidance schemes. For example, contribution to PPC, contribution to contributions made gifted donations. These contributions do band extension, reduces your adjusted net income, makes you eligible for personal allowance. So these are all ways in which you can reduce your tax liability using legal method. Tax evasion is an illegal method of avoiding the tax by hiding information, your income, or without proper disclosures. So there is an explanation given here. Tax avoidance is the minimization of tax liability achieved through the organization of a taxpayer's financial affairs within the limit of the tax law. So using the tax law, we are reducing our income tax liability. Tax avoidance schemes may be challenged under general anti-abuse rule, whereby unreasonably abuse action can be challenged. So there are certain situations where people misuse or exploit the loopholes in the taxation. So there will be actions against that. Tax evasion is an illegal avoidance of tax achieved by the negligence or fraud. So, for example, you are not disclosing your incomes or your gains, or deliberately trying to do any sort of malpractice to avoid the tax liability, that is tax evasion. So that is the difference. So tax avoidance is legal, tax evasion is illegal. That's the difference. The next question. Josie. First requirement. Calculate the income tax first and the last requirement. Calculate the income tax liability of Josie for the tax year 23-24. Okay. So on 31st March 2024, Josie ceased self-employment as a graphic designer after several months of reduced business. So she had an self-employment business. So you will have to compute the trading profit. On 1st August 2023, during the tax year, she commenced an employment with a Typo PLC as a creative director. The following informations are given for 23-24 tax year. Self-employment. Josie's trading profit for the final 14 period to 31st March 2024 were 73,100 before taking into capital allowance. So you have to compute the capital allowance for the final 14 months. The capital allowance for the final 14 months, you should not give AIA, FIA or 100% AIA, FIA or WDA. Put all the amounts in your main pool. If it's a positive figure, it is a balancing allowance. If it is a negative figure, it is a balancing charge. That's it. Then employment. Josie is paid a salary of 15,100 per month by Typo. The salary is paid on the last day of each calendar month. That you started your employment on 1st August. You get your salary at the end of every month. That means August end, September, October, November, December, January, February, March end. For 8 months, salary will be in 23-24 tax year. April salary will fall into the next tax year. So you will have a salary of 8 months. During August 2023, they paid 11,600 into the removal expenses. So in chapter 4, there is an adjustment. What is the allowable or the exempt removal expense given by the employer? That is a maximum of 8,000. Anything above that is taxable. So moved to take up her new employment with the company as she did not live within a reasonable commuting distance. The 11,600 covered both her removal expenses and the legal cost of acquiring a new private residence. On 1st September, they provided Josie with an interest-free loan of 33,000 that she used to renovate her private residence. The loan was still outstanding. So there was no repayment. You can use either the average method or the strict method. And same answer since there is no repayment. Lower of both methods, but since there is no repayment, both the methods will give you same answer. So stick with one method. I would suggest average method. It's an interest-free loan. During the period from 1st August to 5th April, she was provided with free meals. Canteen meals is an exempt benefit, indicate 0. Josie owns 2 properties which are let out. Property 1 qualifies as trade under FHL, while property 2 is let unfurnished. Property 1 income is 6,600, expense is 9,700. So for sure, property 1 has a loss. It's an FHL loss. And the FHL loss is FHL loss is to be set off against future FHL gain. That means this loss, you can't do anything about it. Second property, you will have a profit. 7,200 minus 2,100, you will have a profit. Also, during the year, you receive building society interest, which is savings income. Dividend of 7,200, which is dividend income. Premium bond win price is an exempt income. They made a gifted donation of 4,400 net amount. So you have to gross up. This is for band extension. Okay, so let's do the calculation. Commutation of income tax liability. You're actually supposed to write the full forms. Start with the first one. So her first income, you can include her trade income. But we have to do a computation. So that is a working note 1. Then she has employment income. We can do that as a working as well. and she has a property income. You can calculate, she has a interest income, dividend income, and premium bond win. Premium bond win is indicated with a 0. You can give a 0 in ഏത് കോളത്തിൽ കൊടുത്താലും കുഴപ്പമില്ല. Non savings, savings ഏത് കോളത്തിൽ കൊടുത്താലും കുഴപ്പമില്ല. Just put a 0 there. These are her different incomes. This is their total slash net income. There is no change there. From this, you can deduct her personal allowance. And finally, you will get your taxable income. And you have to calculate your income tax liability on that. So let's do working out 1 first. Working out 1, which is her trade profit. So coming to her trade profit, the final 14 months profit. The final 14 months profit is equal to 73,100. Is 73,100 you have to deduct capital allowance. That was not deducted. This is your final year of trading. So capital allowance is equal to, you take the opening balance in your main pool, which is 13,200. To this, you have to add any purchases that you made during the year, which is 3,600. From this, you have to deduct any disposals. The entire amount from your main pool was disposed for 7,700. So the difference is 9,000. So the amount is 64,000, and you are supposed to show that here. Under non-savings income, please do self-referencing 64,000. Then employment income, that is working note 2. Starting off with salary. So in the case of salary, keep in mind, 8-month salary is considered, okay? How did you get the 8th month? It is 15,100 per month paid on the last day of each calendar month. So that is equal to 15,100 into up until March. So that is 15,100 into 8 months. To this, you have to add the other benefits. Starting off with, there is a removal expenses. So add additional removal expense reimbursement. So out of 11,600, only 8,000 is exempt benefit. The remaining is taxable. So that is equal to 11,600 minus 8,000. The remaining amount is taxable. Then to this, you have to add the amount of beneficial loan. So whichever method you do, you will get the same answer. So I'm going to do the average method, which is opening balance divided by closing balance is also the same, divided by 2 into 2.25%. So that is equal to 33,000 plus 33,000 divided by 2 into 2.25%. That is equal to 33,000 plus 33,000 divided by 2 into 2%, 2.25% in 2.25%. Get rid of any decimals. And canteen meals, indicate 0. So your total employment income is, you can update in the main format and get rid of any decimals. There's one more adjustment you have to be careful. This loan was taken on 1st September 2023. So this is not a full year loan. When you do the beneficial loan computation, you have to also do one more computation from September. September, October, November, December, January, February, March. 1st September. That is into 7 divided by 12. So when you do the calculation, you have to write into 7 divided by 12 as well. Get rid of the decimal. Then to the property income computation, you have to keep in mind one is a loss. FHL property is creating a loss. FHL loss is set off against FHL profit in future, and the other property is having a profit 7,200 minus 2,100. So that is equal to 7,200 minus 2,100. Interest income is building society is 11,200. Dividend income is equal to 7,200. There is a premium bond win, which is an exempt income. So you can calculate your total income here. And from this, it's very evident that you are not eligible for any personal allowance. So keep in mind, you have to write here, since NI above 125, 140, you are not eligible for any personal allowance. So your taxable income is equal to, get rid of the decimals. So now we are going to do the computation of income tax liability. So starting off with non-savings income, basic, which is, when you do the basic computation, please keep in mind, in this situation, there is band extension because there was a gross amount of PPC contribution here, which is 4,400. This is net amount. You have to convert into gross amount. So it's a gifted donation of 4,400 into 100 divided by 8. So up to this limit, you can apply 20%. Then again, 125, 140 plus gross amount of minus 37,700 plus 4,400 into 100 by 80. This is given 40%. And the excess will be given additional rate. So when you do the computation, let me just calculate the gross amount here. Is equal to 4,400 into 100 divided by 80, 5,500. So is equal to 37,700 plus 5,500 is 43,200. 125, 140 plus 5,500 is 136,40. So when you do the calculation, it's equal to 37,700 plus 5,500 into 20%. Here it will be 125, 140 plus 5,500 minus 37,700 plus 5,500 into 40%. And the remaining. So the remaining is equal to, out of this 193933 minus 125, 140 plus 5,500. The remaining will be taxed at 45%. So that is equal to, out of this 193933 minus 125, 140 plus 5,500 into 45%. So that was about non-savings income. Savings income is not eligible for no nil rate. So whatever savings income you have, the 11,200 will be taxed at 45%. And finally, you have the dividend income. So coming to the dividend income, the first 1,000 will always be taxed at 0%. And the remaining dividend income, which is equal to 7,200 minus 1,000, that will be taxed at 39.35%. So you'll have to calculate your total income tax liability. Yes, it is 79,578. 79,578. Okay, so this has a small adjustment for band extension as well. So that was the question. You can also do question John, which we had actually discussed yesterday in our revision class. The change here for John is, in this particular question, the amount of OPC contribution by John and the employer is different. Then there is no PPC contribution in this question. And the miles travel for which he is getting reimbursement. Normal travel between home and office permanent workplace is not eligible for reimbursement. Between office and client is eligible for reimbursement. Between home and the client's place is also eligible for reimbursement. So the idea is, he got a reimbursement for the total miles traveled, which is 5,960. So total reimbursement is for 5,960 into 60 pence. He received 60 pence for that. But his statutory limit is only the business miles traveled for his home to his temporary workplace. That is 4,270 plus. Statutory limit is only applicable 4,270 plus 510 into 45 pence. Okay, so that is one thing. So here there will be excess of mileage allowance, which is taxable. That was another change in the computation. അതായത് mileage allowance computation ചെയ്യുന്ന സമയത്ത് നമുക്ക് റീഇംബേഴ്സ്മെന്റ് കിട്ടുന്നത് ചിലപ്പോൾ ടോട്ടൽ മൈൽസ് ട്രാവൽഡിനായിരിക്കും, വിച്ച് ഇസ് 5,960 60 pence. പക്ഷേ നമ്മൾ നമ്മുടെ വീട്ടിൽ നിന്ന് പെർമനന്റ് വർക്ക് പ്ലേസിലേക്ക് പോകുന്ന ഡിസ്റ്റൻസുകൾക്കൊന്നും നമുക്ക് സ്റ്റാറ്റ്യൂട്ടറി ലിമിറ്റിൽ ഇൻക്ലൂഡ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റില്ല. ഓൺലി ടെമ്പററി വർക്ക് പ്ലേസിലേക്കുള്ള ട്രാവൽ എക്സ്പെൻസ് മാത്രമേ റീഇംബേഴ്സ്മെന്റ് സ്റ്റാറ്റ്യൂട്ടറി ലിമിറ്റിൽ നമുക്ക് ഇൻക്ലൂഡ് ചെയ്യാൻ വേണ്ടി പറ്റുള്ളൂ. അപ്പൊ ഇവിടെ ഓഫീസ് ടു ക്ലയന്റ് വർക്ക് പ്ലേസും അതേപോലെ ഹോം ടു ക്ലയന്റ് വർക്ക് പ്ലേസും നമുക്ക് എടുക്കാൻ വേണ്ടി പറ്റും. ബാക്കി കൺസിഡർ ചെയ്യാൻ വേണ്ടി പറ്റില്ല. This is also same. There was fuel given for the car. Fuel നമ്മുടെ കിറ്റിലെ ക്വസ്റ്റ്യനിൽ ഫ്യൂവൽ ഇല്ല. ഫ്യൂവൽ എന്ന് പറയുമ്പോൾ ഒരു ഫിക്സഡ് റേറ്റ് ഇൻറ്റു ദ റേറ്റ് ഓഫ് കാർ ബെനിഫിറ്റ് ഇൻറ്റു ടൈം അപ്പോർഷൻമെന്റ്സ് ഫ്രം നവംബർ ടിൽ 5th April ആണ്. So you need to time apportion fuel benefit as well. This was the same adjustment as your kit as well. So also your contribution is above your annual allowance limit. അതുകൊണ്ട് തന്നെ you will have to calculate additional benefit charge on that. So this question is somewhat similar to the question that we did from our BPP kit, but please make sure you focus on point number 2, point number 3, and point number 4 le last sentence, which is fuel benefit. Calculate the class 1 national insurance contribution that will be suffered by John in respect of his earnings. Suffered by John, who is an employee. So that is class 1 primary and benefits for the tax year 23-24. So basically they are asking you to do a class 1 primary computation. Because class 1 primary is only suffered by John. Class 1 secondary, class 1A is suffered by John and the employer Surf PLC. So they asked you to do a computation of class 1 primary. So you can work that out. We'll do one more question before winding up. That is Ricardo. The question is calculate Ricardo's tax adjusted trading profit for the year ended 5th April 2024. So tax adjusted trading profit there should always be a starting point. Start with your net profit figure of 32,200. List all the items, indicate 0 wherever necessary. So I'm going to write computation of tax adjusted trade profit. So you are starting off with your net profit figure here. So your net profit is 32,200. You have to add back and do the adjustment. So starting off with the first one is car expense. So coming to the car expense, it is a not number 1. So car expense include cost of running Ricardo's car, which is 4710. Ricardo's car is 70% used for private purpose. That means out of the 4710 cost, add back 70% private cost of car of Ricardo. So that is equal to, out of that 4710 into 70% add back here. Then running cost for the restaurant chef employee, car cost for employee, which is the chef. Keep in mind, it is allowable. Private usage it is allowable, indicate 0. Then parking fines incurred by Ricardo, add back. Parking fines for the Ricardo, you have to add back, which is 280. Then next one is property expense, which is number 2. Coming to property expense, Ricardo lives in an apartment which is situated above the restaurant, and 1/5 of the total property relates to the apartment. So that is private usage. 1/5 is private usage. So out of this total property expense of 16,200, you will have to add back 1/5. So you have to add back private proportion of property, which is equal to, out of 16,200, you have to add back 1/5. Then next is decorating expenses, repairs and renewals. Decorating the restaurant is allowable expense. That is for the purpose of trade, it is allowable, indicate 0. But decorating the apartment, that is disallowed, you need to add back. It is a private expense, you need to add back. Then legal cost in connection to the purchase of a restaurant property. Legal cost and capital expenditures, add back. So that is equal to 2590. And don't forget to deduct the amount of capital allowance as well, which you have to do as a calculation. So I'm going to do that as a calculation. So you have the following purchases. There is no opening balance in your main pool. There are 2 cars. Car 1 cost is 14,000. It's a 44 grams. It's a main pool item. Car 2, 16,800. 48 grams. It is a special pool item. Car 1, it is 25 miles and used by Ricardo. So this is privately used car. Make sure you have to put it in a separate column. Privately used asset. Car 2 is an electric range of 55 miles and is used by the restaurant chef. So we need to find out the computation of capital allowance. ഒരു blank column കൊടുക്കുക. ഒരു main pool, ഒരു privately used asset എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞിട്ട്, and also you need a capital allowance column. If you notice here, 44 grams is a main pool. This is a special pool. This is a special pool. Both of them is less than 50. Sorry, both of them are less than 50 LI. So this is main pool itself. Main. So starting off with the first car, car 1. Car 1 will be in the privately used asset of 14,000. Car 2 is used by the chef. Even private usage until it is 16,800 in the main pool. You have to apply WDV. So when you apply WDV at 18%, keep in mind this is equal to this amount into 18%, and you have to update that to your capital allowance column. Second case, when you apply, is equal to this amount into 18%. But when you transfer it, it is equal to this amount in a 30% only capital allowance can be claimed. That is equal to, out of the 2520, 70% is privately used. Only 30% is business usage. So the total capital allowance will be 3780. So deduct 3780. Therefore, your tax adjusted trade profit is 39,147. Next part of the question. Calculate the total employers class 1 and class 1A NIC which Ricardo would have incurred in respect of his employees' earnings and benefit. So you are asked to do a computation of class 1 and class 1A which Ricardo has to suffer, who is an employer will have to suffer. So listen very carefully. Calculate class 1 for the chef. A chef who was employed throughout the tax year on an annual salary of 46,000. He was also provided with a petrol car throughout the tax year. The list price is the same as the cost. So there is information provided here to calculate the car benefit. I'll just show you the calculation here itself. Okay, so when you take the case of chef's salary is eligible for class 1 secondary. So his salary amount 46,000, that was his annual salary. 46,000 minus the limit is 9,100 into 13.8%. This is class 1 secondary for the chef, which is suffered by employer Ricardo. Then you need to find out the car benefit. So using the information list price into the percentage using electric range table, the car benefit is 1,344. Class 1A, which is 1,344 into 13.8%. There is a waitress in this question. She is a part-time employee. Her annual salary is 7,400. Her threshold of income is less than 9,100. So there is no NIC contribution related to the waitress. There is an assistant chef. Coming to the assistant chef, he is employed for only 8 months. So your threshold will also have to be considered as 8 months. That monthly salary is 2,200. So you have to take it as 8 months salary. Just 2,200 into 8 months. Your threshold is 9,100 for 12 months. This also has to be converted into 8 by 12. And then you have to do the comparison. So that is equal to 2,200 into 8 months minus 9,100 into 8 divided by 12. Okay. And this figure into 13.8%. So the answer is 1591. You have to round your answer to 1592. Keep in mind, the threshold of NIC 9,100 has to be reduced depending on the number of months they have worked. Okay. So 8 month salary compared with 8 month threshold, the difference into 13.8%. This is the equation. So 2,200 into 8 months minus 9,100 into 8 by 12. That is 8 month salary with 8 month threshold into 13.8%. So that was also a pretty good question to do practice. You can also try out. So there are around 15 questions which you have to finish before your examination. And those questions which are similar to your skit, just do the additional adjustments. Okay, so there will be similar ones. You can skip that, just do the additional adjustments. So we are done with the revision of income tax, and tomorrow we'll be doing a revision of CGT and some tax planning as well. So see you guys tomorrow. Bye.